Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Dr. Shehz, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And one of the things that we talked about before we hit record was everybody has a story. And our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. Like, for instance, I know that you came to the US as an undocumented immigrant, right? And you're now, a doctor of ophthalmology, that kind of thing. So, I mean, this is a huge story of your success. And I want to celebrate you. I want to acknowledge you. And I want everybody to hear what led up to today, right? And I know you're a real estate investor. You mentioned you're working on a comedy routine. You got a lot of stuff going on, podcasts, the whole thing. And I'm super excited to talk with you. So thanks for being here, bud.
Man, thanks for having me. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm looking forward
we're
to
having
it.
a lot of fun. So where were you born?
So I was born in India, Mumbai, India,
Okay.
1990. And I was 7 when we came here to the States. My parents came, just to look for better opportunities for their children, right? There's a lot of stuff going on back home in the early 90s. And so it just wasn't a great place to raise children. So came here and actually came here on a tourist visa. But, when you're here and trying to kind of survive and, figure out how to live in this new land, right, with your 2 young children, you kind of neglect to do the things that you need to do to legally move here, right, to a different country. So my dad didn't apply for the green card, and so our family became undocumented, and that's a huge part of my story. I mean, that was a 20 plus year struggle. And then once you get your citizenship, man, there's no feeling like it. It's like it's a superpower, right? So just coming here has to this country has totally changed my life.
That's cool. So where did you move to when you were 7 to the States? Where in the States did you move to?
We moved around a bunch. We first went to New York, and then Arkansas, a couple places in Texas, and then finally settled in East Texas, Tyler, Texas, when I was 10. Yeah.
Okay.
So from 7 to 10, that 3-year period, man, it was like every few months we're just up and moving,
So Tyler, Texas, you lived there for how long?
My whole life after that. Up
Okay.
until I graduated college. So I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, college there. And then I moved to Fort Worth for medical school, and then up north to Oklahoma City for a residency in ophthalmology.
Okay.
Just kind of stayed in Oklahoma for a bit, and now I'm back in Dallas, Texas.
That's cool. So growing up in Tyler, what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Yeah, everything was always just like close by, right? Everything was just convenient. Early on, kind of when I was 14, 15 years old, I got into fixing phones and just, doing tech things like that. And I decided that I was going to provide that service and sell that service, right? So I would basically help people make ringtones. I would, do some things to that initial Motorola V3 Razor, change the keypad, make it, shine fancy colors, and people would pay for that service. And it was very the opportunity to do something like that in that small of a community and really become successful at it and well known was phenomenal. And I think that's only really possible in one of those, small town kind of communities. And so that was probably my favorite thing, just that community environment that really allowed me to leverage my skills in that way.
Cool. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Man. Um, that's a hard question because I grew up with like these feelings of like, oh, it's just all on me, and I gotta do everything. Like I gotta help out with the family, I gotta help out with income, and I gotta, you know, gotta manage that immigration debacle and all these things. And so I honestly don't even think like growing up, I even had a chance to just like think about who my role model is and who I was influenced by. It was just survival. It
Yeah.
was just survival. But I guess if I had to, you know, I really spent a lot of time with my dad
Mhm.
in business. I always say business is like in my blood,
Mhm.
because growing up, like my dad, my uncles were all always talking about, various kinds of business opportunities. And so I think from just an early age, I just picked up on the fact that like there's always a way and you can always be resourceful,
Mhm.
right? Um, there's always a way to make things happen, right? It's not, sometimes you got to ask yourself a different question,
Mhm.
right? But there's always a way. And I really got that from my dad. So I would say him.
Okay. Going to high school, did you have a
Yeah.
favorite subject?
I loved organic chemistry.
Really?
I love that class, man. I talked to a lot of people about it in kind of my circles and others, and they're like, "Oh man, I hated OChem." Like,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of like 3D things, right? With these molecules, and you kind of have to visualize. And I don't know, I was always good at that. I really enjoyed that class, and I was scared out of my mind to take that
Yeah.
class, right? Because I had always heard like nightmares about people failing OChem and
Mhm.
growing up in the family that I did, like failing was not an option, right?
Yeah.
Like a B was not an option.
Right.
Like, it's like an A or an A plus. Those are your
Right.
two options.
Yeah.
And so I was very scared to take that class, but once I started getting involved in it, it was like, okay, this is not bad.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. Did you play sports in high school?
middle school.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite sport?
I played I'm laughing because I'm so bad at sports, man. I played tight end,
Yeah.
um, football in the sixth or seventh grade,
Yeah.
and there was like the orange team, which is like the top team, and then there's like the white team,
Yeah.
there's like the string, and then there's like the green team,
Mhm.
and there was like a bunch of different colors, and then came like the pink team,
Right.
and I was on the pink team, so
Right.
I was like fifth or sixth string, right? It was
Mm.
just, I remember like, I clearly remember this memory of like, we were in tryouts and the coach was like, all right, you're going to run. I'm going to throw you the football. You're going to turn around and catch it. And you're going to run back to me, right? I don't know, like 50 yards or something. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I'm not going to catch this ball. I'm not going to catch this ball. Like, this is not
Right.
going to happen. So
Right.
I run, I turn around and like, I catch it. And I was shocked that I caught it. So I just like stood there for like 3 seconds, mesmerized that I caught the ball. The coach is like, run back. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
the whole thing is timed.
Yeah. You forgot the
And
rest of the
I
instructions.
forgot I was like, oh, I gotta caught this ball. Like, let me celebrate 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Uh, so that I played that for a little bit, but that's about it. I was always kind of the bookworm guy. I just always made good grades on tests, and so I kind of focused on that.
Nothing wrong with that. So you played football in a place, let's be honest, this is the state of Texas where football's a religion. Okay. It's a
Not
big,
just
big
that,
deal.
not just
Huh?
state of Texas, Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like all they cared about is football,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Football and
like the
barbecue.
epicenter.
Yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly.
cool, man. So you graduate from high school.
Yep.
Where do you go to college?
UT Tyler in Tyler.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So why UT Tyler? Was it because it was at home?
So a couple of reasons. So I really wanted to go to an Ivy League. Like I said, I was good at school and tests, and so I kind of wanted to see, how far I could stretch that, right?
Yeah.
I really wanted that Ivy League experience that everybody was talking about, but
Mhm.
I didn't have a green card. And so when you're undocumented, no social security number, that's really not an option. You can't apply. Or I think, yeah, I don't even think they would have interviewed me, or even if they did, like there was something about finances and all these things that was related to me not having papers that was going to be very, cumbersome.
Yeah.
So that really wasn't an option. And then, I was like, okay, so what are my options?
Mhm.
So if you graduate from a Texas high school, you can go to a Texas public university without really needing, a green card or anything like that.
That's cool.
So my options were basically anywhere in Texas.
Yeah.
Around that time, my mom, she wasn't doing well. So she has mental illness, and I speak about this pretty openly because I really want to break down this like stigma and stereotype around mental
Yeah.
illness.
It's important.
So she's schizophrenic and bipolar, and so around that time she wasn't doing too well, and so I felt that kind of obligation to really be as close to home as possible,
Yeah.
just in case, right? Certainly for that kind of acute situation, but I just didn't have it in me to walk away. So I went to UT Tyler,
Mm.
and I was offered a great scholarship there. I actually got paid to go to school, so that was awesome.
That's awesome.
Uh, and I got into the honors program there. It was like the first class and everything. So it was actually a great education,
Cool.
right? There was a part of me that was like, man, I wish I went to an Ivy League and things like that. But it was actually a great education, especially the honors program. Really got me to like think critically and just challenge um dogma,
Yeah.
So
That's cool. So you graduate from college
yeah.
with a degree in.
I got a bachelor's in biology with a minor in chemistry.
There you go. So then from there, where do you go?
So then around junior year of college, it's time to kind of decide what you're going to do next. And for
Yeah.
me, for a number of reasons, it was always medicine. And so I applied to medical school, and I got into UNT Health Science Center in Fort Worth, Texas. So
Okay.
I then moved to Fort Worth.
Okay.
Um, Between graduating college and that move, I got married as well. And so my wife and I moved to Fort Worth. I went to medical school, and she went to pharmacy school at the same campus.
Oh, that's cool. So how long were you in medical school?
4 years,
Okay.
2013 to 17. Yeah.
Gotcha. What was your favorite thing about medical school?
Um, a couple of things. I mean, I think, I always had this fascination with the human mind, right? Um, my essay to get into medical school, I talked about a lot of things, but like I talked about Einstein, and
Mhm.
just like when he visualized and came up with the theory of relativity and all these things, he was able to visualize um light and kind of how it's, how it changes and how, relative to the person viewing it and all these things. And I was just like, man, like, how does someone change the world like that using
Mhm.
the power of your mind, right?
Yeah.
It was just such this like almost this naivete,
Mhm.
fascination with the human mind, and the entire human body, right? Our heart beats 200,000 times a day. Like, how does
Mhm.
that happen, right?
Mhm.
So I got to really indulge in that fascination. I got to learn a lot about what it is to be a human from a physiological standpoint. So that was probably one of my favorite things. And the other thing were, it's just the connections. We were talking about connections earlier, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's a beautiful thing when you can have a vulnerable relationship, even if it's in the setting of a conversation with somebody, right? And you
Right.
connect with fellow human beings. So I developed and cultivated really strong friendships in medical school. One of my best friends to this day. You know, I met him first day of medical school. We just kind of hit it off. He's an ER doctor in Houston. So yeah, just getting to indulge in that fascination, and then getting to really experience those relationships through authentic connections, you know.
Gotcha. Why ophthalmology?
A couple of reasons there too. So one, you know, I really enjoy novel and challenging things, right? And so in medical school, we don't really learn a whole lot about the eyeball. We have kind of like this brief period, I think maybe like a week or so, you
Mm,
know, the eyes. And I just remember like, man, that's a cool little organ, you
mm,
know? Like everything you and I consume and experience, I mean, our reality is shaped by what we see,
mhm,
right? And I was always fascinated with like the concept of light,
mhm.
right? I mentioned Einstein, kind of what you know, how he thought about light and the speed of light, right? Um, yeah, it just light always just fascinated me to this day. And so again, it was like to explore that fascination with this beautiful organ that helps us see the world, and doing surgery inside that tiny thing, right? I mean, when I'm doing cataract surgery, it's like a 3 millimeter space that you're operating within, and it's your hands, right? I mean, so just the challenge of doing something like that was
Yeah.
exciting. Um, and part of it, you know, I'll be honest, you know, you mentioned the comedy thing. I really want to do this special, and I'm going to call it pathological ambition,
Mhm.
right? Because that's what I had, you know, and to this day, to some degree, I do, you know, but I have awareness of it now. Back then, I had no awareness, right?
Mm.
And so, pathological ambition is basically, you know, doing things just not knowing why you're really doing it,
Yeah.
chasing like all of these various ways to achieve external validation,
Mhm,
right? And so ophthalmology is a very competitive field.
mhm,
And my medical school was an osteopathic medical school. Osteopathic medical schools generally tend to produce primary care doctors because it's a very holistic view of the human body, right?
mhm.
And so primary care doctors obviously take care of the entire human body.
Right.
Um, and it was told to me that, you know, because I'm in an osteopathic school, it's going to be hard for me to match something competitive in a subspecialty like
Mm.
ophthalmology or neurosurgery or dermatology, radiology, right? And for a guy that has pathological ambition, you tell me I'm not going to be able to do it. I'll be like, hold my beer, right?
Yeah. Watch me.
Watch me,
Watch me.
you know?
Yeah.
And so there was that too, right? I mean, it was all lumped into like this desire to like, man, I want that. I
Yeah.
really want that. And so I did whatever I had to do, you know. And so I was the first DO, doctor of osteopathic medicine, to match into my MD ophthalmology residency program. It was my top pick, and I got it, and it felt really good, right?
Mhm,
I was like, man, this took a lot of work. The journey was fun, and I'm gonna enjoy this,
mhm.
right? Um, so yeah, I mean, there were a lot of reasons why I chose ophthalmology, and I'm so glad I did. You
Yeah.
know, when I first started residency, that first year of residency is so difficult because, like I said, you get like a week maybe of
Yeah.
eyeballs in medical school, so you know nothing
Yeah.
about eyes. And residency is where you become a doctor, right? Medical school is just kind of like the foundations of what you need to be a doctor. Residency is where you become into one, right?
Where you
You
start
assume.
practicing. Yeah. You start learning how to practice.
Yeah, and that first year, man, it was like this was a mistake. I don't think I can do this. I have no idea what's going on, you know. But it, you know, it just they're all lessons in persistence,
Right.
perseverance, just being resilient,
Yeah.
right? I've just learned, you know, my learning curve is like it's flat in the beginning, but once I get it, I really get it,
Right.
right? And so anyway,
That's cool. All right. So you you have you go through your residency,
Yep.
and then you end up. It sounds like you end up. So your residency in Dallas,
No, Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Okay, so you're in Oklahoma City. You finish your residency, and you end. And do you move, or where do you go from there?
Yeah, so I did a fellowship in LASIK and kind of advanced cataract surgery, if you will. So, the whole focus of my fellowship was to get people out of glasses and contacts, right?
Okay.
Complete spectacle independence. And that was right in my backyard in Oklahoma City. So I did that. And then I took a little bit of a hiatus, if you will. I typically what happens is you finish residency, you finish your fellowship, and most people go on to start full-time jobs, right? You went through your entire 20s. By the time you finish, you're like in your early 30s, and so now you're going to go out there and actually work.
Yeah.
But residency for me was a very tough period from a personal level, and we can get into that. It has to do with the immigration journey that we were talking about. And so I experienced a period of burnout, honestly, in medicine, right? I just started questioning why I was doing it even in the first place. It was really an identity crisis, a quarter life crisis, if you will. And so I took a step back and I pursued some other passions that I had, right? So I've always had a fascination with space. Um, I interned for NASA in medical school in the division of space medicine, where I learned about issues that astronauts have in space. And so I did some research in the vision issues that astronauts have in space. So I've always had kind of this interest in space, and I have a business background as well. And when I took a step back from medicine and I was like, okay, where do I want to go from here? I don't know. Somebody, Google was listening to me because, you know, I I I found this MBA program essentially um, through the Arizona State University
Yeah.
on the space economy, right? So most people have no clue what the space economy is, but
Right.
in the next 10 to 15 years, we will have this burgeoning, field that people can go into. Um, and it has everything to do with outer space and all of the benefits that come from accessing that resource, right? So I got an MBA in that for the course of a year. And during that year, I was doing part-time medicine. So I was working 2-3 days a week, and getting my MBA and just kind of, figuring myself out, right? Processing everything that happened during residency, processing my past. Honestly, I went pretty deep. I got a ton of therapy and counseling just to understand like where was this coming from, this like discontentment and this quarter life crisis, this crisis of identity and purpose, right? Where was all this coming from?
Yeah.
Um, so that was in 2022. That was probably one of my most fruitful years of my life because I discovered so much about myself, you know.
So you get
Uh,
your MBA,
yep.
right?
Say that again.
And say again.
So what were you saying?
So you get your MBA,
Correct. Yep.
right? So you're a Sun Devil. Kind of interesting. Kind of
That's
cool,
right. That's
right?
right.
So you get
And
your
a
MBA,
T-bird. And a
huh?
T-bird. A T-bird as well, a Thunderbird. So Arizona State University, and it was the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So I'm a
There you go.
T-bird
There you go.
as well.
Cool. So you get your MBA, and at some point, do you decide to get out of medicine?
No, so I questioned why I was in medicine,
Gotcha.
right? And everything that I've kind of told you about the fascination and all of these things, I had just kind of lost sight of that. I had
Right.
lost sight of my passion for medicine,
Yeah.
right? Because I had focused on telling myself a disempowering story,
Okay.
right? So, one of the other reasons I went into medicine was because it was a way for me to really make my parents proud.
Yeah.
right? It was really their desire. And I saw that, and at the same time, I was developing my own kind of interests in that field, right?
Right.
So all of it kind of merged, and I chose that track. But what I focused on, at least in my kind of burnout and identity crisis moment, is the disempowering version of that narrative, right?
Yeah.
That, oh, I didn't even want to do this. Like, this is not really my choice, and this is something I did for my parents, and you know, and I have all of these other interests, right? Like we've talked about.
Hmm.
And part of residency is, it's a system, right? I mean, there are a lot of pluses that are there, but there are a lot of negatives too. It's a bureaucratic kind of system. And as a resident, just inherently, you're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole,
Right.
right? And so it was just a very tough period for all those reasons. And I just kind of kept telling myself this disempowering story.
Hmm.
And so when I took that time in 2022 to really come to terms with my identity as a doctor,
Hmm.
right? Um, I realized that, man, like I do have this fascination and love for the human body and for my fellow human beings,
Hmm.
right? I love people. Um, I never thought of myself in that way, but after going through this period of unraveling my disempowering story and telling myself a better story, I understood and realized that this is my passion. I
Hmm.
absolutely enjoy this, right? It's a privilege to tickle eyeballs for a living, man. It's a
Yeah.
privilege to help people see,
Yeah.
right? I this was in 2023, I think. I took a mission trip to Mexico to do
Hmm.
cataract surgery. Um, for people that don't have the opportunity to kind of, get the care that we have here in the USA, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, these people can barely see a hand in front of their face because they have really big cataracts, which is
Hmm.
a cloudiness of the lens. And I go in, and within 20 minutes, I'm able to help them see, and it changes their entire world. And when you go through an experience like that, you really understand what a privilege it is to do what we do, right?
Yeah.
But I also realized that medicine is one of my many passions. I'm
Hmm.
a passionate person,
Yeah.
right? I have a lot of interests. I'm just a very curious person. I'm a student of knowledge,
Hmm.
right? I like to learn.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I don't have to necessarily practice medicine in the way that is, that is kind of societally understood and accepted, which is, you go through this journey and you become a full-time physician, and that's all you do.
Hmm.
That's great for some people, but that's not my choice of lifestyle, right?
Right.
My ideal lifestyle would be to practice medicine on my own terms, right?
Yeah.
Not because I have to make a paycheck, right? Not because I have to, pay some bills, not because I have this larger than life type of lifestyle that I've accumulated for myself. And
Right.
now I just have to keep working this rat race to support my lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into that rat race. So I realized that I can practice medicine on my own terms,
Mhm.
right? But to do that, you need money.
Yeah. Kind of
And
important.
kind of important. And that introduced me to the world of real estate investing, right?
Wow.
So during this burnout period in residency, I found this group of burnt out doctors
Yeah.
who had decided that we were going to take power into our own hands, and
Mhm.
we were going to figure out how to kind of practice medicine on our own terms. And so this group of doctors, we invest in real estate for,
Mhm.
for passive income. Because if you have, I always ask this question to.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.